In today's lecture, we're going to be talking about personal cash flow. My name is Torlando Hakes, of course, CEO of Crafts Painter. And personal finances is a really important part of your overall success as a painter, as a professional painter. Uh, the fact of the matter is that painting is a highly seasonal business. The product and offer itself is price elastic, which means that in busy seasons you're able to charge more money. In slower seasons, you might have to apply a winter rate in order to stay effectively busy. And understanding what your monthly nut is what's going to help you stay afloat in this business. And to a large degree, if you're really smart about it, the slow season, the winter months, can actually be a personal time of hibernation, reflection, um, recuperation, and overall enjoyment and satisfaction, if you do it right. But if you don't do it, if you aren't smart and wise about your finances, then the winter can be pretty stressful. It could be frantic. It could be depressing, and overall, it can make you question why you're even doing what you're doing. And so it's really important to understand these things. And I can tell you that on a personal level, I've had many winters where I've struggled through it and felt like I was barely going to make it. But I've also had winters where because of diligent savings, I was able to kind of relax and hibernate. Like I said, it's a lot like the parable of the ant and the grasshopper. The ant works hard all warm season, and the grasshopper just kind of dinks around, fools around, and while the ant is working away and the grasshopper is making fun of him for never taking time to relax, the ant knows what's coming. And so what happens is the winter comes and the grasshopper has no food, no resources, and comes to the ant and says, "Please help me." The ant says, "Sorry, I've just got enough for myself," right? And so the way that we prepare our personal finances is going to be a lot like the ant and the grasshopper. Okay, and what you become is entirely on you. Are you the ant? Are you the grasshopper? In business, as a solo practitioner, maybe even with a team of folks, you've got a responsibility to put food on the table, and it all starts there. And without a strong, solid understanding of how to manage your finances when you have an irregular income, it makes it hard to plan your business finances. And so I always start with personal finances when it comes to business finances, because as a small owner operator or business owner, you have to know what your nut is, right? You have to know what you need throughout the course of the year. So let's get down into it and talk personal cash flow. So I use a little diagram here, and on this diagram we have 5 buckets. Of course, I chose paint buckets because we're painters, and your buckets are gonna signify different categories of spending. And when you're either starting off on your own for the first time, maybe you've been in it for a while, maybe you're approaching a winter month, or even if you're in a time of plenty and you have a lot of money, you think you're rich all of a sudden, um, categorizing your spending in this way is going to help you um, to manage it better. And it all this whole system that I've developed here, it all rests on this idea of Parkinson's law, which we've talked about in terms of production. We know that in production, that the amount of work expands to the amount of time given for it. And so if you're using our point system, you know that if you give somebody an 8 point room and that they are expected to do 2 points per hour, then you know that they should be able to finish that room in 4 hours. And because they've got that target of of number of hours according to their own personal production rate. They're going to just naturally make that happen, and they have the skill level to make it happen. As I typically teach, when we're talking about Parkinson's law, I always talk about the bags of Doritos. You've got the small bag that you might put in a kid's lunch, and if you're given that bag, you're going to eat the whole thing. And then if you go to the gas station, you buy one of those grab bags at the end of the aisle. Even though it says 2 servings, you open that bag up, you're going to eat the whole thing. You go to the store, you grab a large bag, regular size bag, you open that thing up. It kind of doesn't matter how many servings it says. You're probably going to eat most of that bag beyond. Maybe you might not eat the whole thing, right? And it just keeps going up. You buy the party size bag, and now you've overdosed on chips. So that's how Parkinson's law works. It works with our productivity, but it also works with our finances. And maybe you've noticed that. Maybe you've noticed that when you got a lot of money in the bank, that you have a tendency to just spend what you got. You open up your bank app, you look at that number, and you think, oh, I'm doing all right. I'm going to go ahead and spend that money. And then all of a sudden you forgot, oh shoot, I have to pay rent, or oh shoot, I got to fill up the car with gas, and you're not paying attention to the fact that, oh well, that weekend trip was not very timely. It was a little out of budget, right? And so we do that. We look at the number and the balance in the bank, and we don't think about what's coming out of the bank. And so by separating our spending into these 5 distinct categories, what we're actually doing is we're forcing ourselves to follow Parkinson's law. I want you to imagine if you took all of your money and you divided it across these different buckets, and you had one bucket that anytime you had a need, something that's classified as a need, and you were able to pull it out of that bucket, well, now you're stopping yourself from going to reaching into your goals, or into your future, or into your safety account. You're avoiding yourself, and you're stopping. You're putting a container around your spending. And that idea of putting a container around your spending is the thing that's really ultimately going to help you curb your spending habits, and it's going to do it in a way that's actually pretty natural, in a way that you don't have to think about it all the time. You don't have to be constantly monitoring. You're going to be able to control and curb that spending based off of just being able to look at that bank account and say, oh, this is what I got. Meanwhile, the rest of the money is tucked away and categorized for another need. And so how we do this, how we effectualize this, is we actually create different accounts where our money is sheltered and protected in each of these accounts. So the different categories are the needs, your wants, your safety, and then there's goals and future. Okay, and just kind of a preview of this, of how it's going to work, is as money comes in, you're going to make sure that your needs are covered first. And you're going to look at the month ahead. Maybe you have a little bit of control over this. I would say at least a month ahead, but you might want to look a little further, maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks ahead. And you want to make sure that all of the money that you have is going to cover the cost of that term. Okay. And then once you have your needs covered so that you're going to be able to survive, then you can start thinking about having a little bit of fun and doing some things that you would want to do. Okay, within reason, of course. What we have to remember and understand is that 50% of purchasing of most Americans is our income, or our impulse purchases. 50% is impulse purchases, and so as Americans, we're really not in control of our spending, and we need to be able to some degree have that flexibility and that control to say, you know what, I want to go out to eat tonight. You know what, I do want a new pair of shoes, and have that extra cash so that you can do that. But you can't responsibly spend that way unless you know that you have your needs covered for a certain period of time. And so when you fill up your needs bucket to the amount that's going to cover the next month or so, then we pour the remaining money that comes in and we pour it into our wants account. And we're going to put a limit on it. We're going to put a parameter on it. Okay, there might be a little bit of unpredictability when it comes to the spending on wants. However, if we put a limit to it, and once that limit is spent, then the spending stops. And so you put that limit on there. You put a line that you're going to fill that bucket up to, and any remaining money is then going to be pushed into your safety account. And the safety account, we'll talk about what that's for, but we want that to cover, roughly a quarter of your income, which for some folks, that's hard to accomplish, especially when we're already living paycheck to paycheck. But the point of this whole system is to get us to a point where the money that we earn is filling these buckets so that we have more runway. And once we have our needs, our wants, and our safety taken care of, now we can look toward the future and think about our short-term goals and our future living arrangement, which is retirement. So let's go ahead and break each of these steps, each of these buckets down one by one. And before we get into the buckets, we'll actually talk about the income. Now, your income is, of course, the money that you earn. It's the money that you earn from your revenues of business, from the profits of your business, or the wage that you get paid from business. It includes any kind of side hustles that you might have, other ways of creating money. I do not recommend using debt of any kind to finance your lifestyle. That is a fool's errand, and it will bite you. So avoid it. I know when I was young, and when I was first starting out in business, I had a hard time bridging the gap from the fall to the spring. And so, I needed to pay my bills, and so I got a credit card. And I thought, well, we'll pay a bill on this, and hopefully I don't overspend on that credit card, and I can pay it off in the springtime. Well, that free money that wasn't actually free was really really easy to spend. And so I made a handful of mistakes, when I was younger with credit cards that cost me deeply. Today, I really don't like using them. So I don't recommend that you use them. I really don't. I think there are easier ways to live. So the income that you receive, it's by nature as a painter, it can tend to be a little variable. And what we want to be able to do is we want to, as much as possible, figure out how we can predict what our income is going to be. And predicting your income, especially if you are an independent contractor or business owner, even if you're employed, predicting your income as a painter comes down to knowing your production capacity. And your production capacity, again, if you're using our point system, you can dictate that, and you can create goals, right? Because if you look at a job and the job was bid out at a certain number of points, and you know that, let's say it's 100 points, and you know that, for every point that you produce, you're going to get X number of dollars. Then you know that, okay, if I finish this job in this amount of time, this 100 points, then I'm going to get X number of dollars within that time period. And so you want to actually do the math to figure out, okay, in order to reach my income goals, what does my overall points production need to be? And if I'm earning X number of dollars per point, how many points need to be produced? And this is how I run. This is how I think about it, right? I think about my role, which is I'm not in the field anymore. I'm in sales, and I benefit from the company, right? So my role as a salesperson, if I'm getting commission and and I'm selling, even though I'm not personally producing the points, but I am still getting a dollar amount per point, then I just take my income goal, I divide it by the dollar amount per point, and that gives me a goal for how many points I need to sell within the year. The same thing could be done if you are the painter as well. And some of you might even be both selling and producing. And so you get a certain dollar amount per point. Now, you will have to account for things like income taxes, and according to your tax bracket, and your conditions, then you will have to set aside a certain percentage of that income for taxes. Now, luckily, you can very easily find ballparks by using an AI tool like Bard or ChatGPT to ask questions. Put in prompts, to help you know what to save for taxes. It'll ask you, it'll ask for clarifications, right? And it'll say, hey, I don't know your filing status. Well, if you're married, or you're a single, or however you're filing, however many dependents you have, you can input that into the AI and as parameters, and you can put in what your expected income is based off of your points times the dollar amount per point, and say, what do you expect my taxes to be, or what should I be saving, how much should I as a percentage, how much should I be setting aside, and it'll give you a rough idea. Now, you can't completely trust it, because at this stage of the game, AI can certainly be confidently wrong in a lot of things, but it gets you an idea without having to go to your accountant. You go to your accountant, they'll let you know. They'll actually do the math for you, right? So the main idea here is we want to figure out what that percentage is going to be, and that percentage depends on your tax filing status, and as well as the way that your entity files your taxes, whether your entity is a sole proprietorship, an S corp, or some of the other options out there. So basically, you're going to try to figure out a percentage of that income that you need to set aside. Now, typically, it's going to be somewhere between 20 and 30%, but you need to figure that out. You really need to figure that out. Don't estimate on the low end of what I just said, because you'll be short on your taxes. Okay, so just make sure that you figure out what it is you need to set aside, and I would set that money aside in a different bank account so that you are not touching it. In the system, when we have income, we want it to actually go into different separate bank accounts. Your business income has to go into a business account, and you can, at your business institution, you can set up multiple savings accounts and label them for things that you have to set that money aside for. Taxes is one of them. Make sure that you set the money aside into an account that's labeled taxes, so that you are hanging on to that money and you are not touching it. You are not allowed to touch it. Now, if you're employed, then it's a little bit easier, because that money is withheld by your employer, and so you don't touch it, right? It's a lot easier. In fact, we run on a PEO for that reason. It just makes it easier, and I highly recommend actually using the PEO, signing up for the PEO, because that will help you set aside your payroll taxes, and it'll help you set aside your workers' comp amount, and that gets taken out before you get the money, right? And so I highly recommend joining the PEO. and our partners, with our partners at Synergia. So the income comes in, right? Whatever your take home pay is. And we want to be able to predict that as much as possible, or at least have an idea of what we need for the month. And so there's this dance that happens where we're trying to figure out both our what is the baseline? What are our baseline needs? What do we need to cover? What do we have the potential to earn? Are we covering that? And how much are we? What's the deficit versus what's the overage? What's cash flowing, right? And so it all starts with having an idea of what the income needs to be. What do you need your income to be? What do you expect it to be? If you have an idea of both, then you can start to plan. It's fairly common for me to look at our monthly budget and say, okay, we're looking at it the month ahead. We're looking at the month ahead, and I know with a certainty that I've covered about half or 3/4 of the month. So we've covered 3/4 of the month with the expected income based off of the contracts that I've sold. I have a little bit of a deficit to where I have to bridge that gap, right? And that's certainly common in those slower months. We get into the months ahead, and maybe the sales are flowing a little bit more, and I know that not only have I covered the first month, but I've got overage into the subsequent months. And so I can use my income as a tool to predict the cash flow. That's the first thing that we have to figure out. So you're creating goals in terms of how many points do you need to produce or sell, and you are taking an assessment of how much have I already produced or sold, or how much do I expect to sell. What's the deficit? What's the surplus? And that's the beginning of this system. So then we move into understanding our needs. What do we need as a family, or what do I need as an individual to be able to survive? We've got to survive out here. Our needs are the things that keep us alive. They're the food that we eat, the clothes on our body, the shoes on our feet, the roof over our head. It's our utilities. Those are the things that we really need. And in a modern age, there are other things that you need, like you do need a phone in order to contact people. And could you get away with not having a smartphone with an internet connection? Sure, people survived without an internet connection for years, but it makes it hard. So we'll go ahead and call that a justifiable need. In fact, I would say that most of your needs could be categorized by something that is typically a monthly recurring bill. Aside from your food, the bills that you have are things that you need to pay regardless of whether you make money or not, right? And so as long as we're covering our baseline needs, then we can survive. And that's the first thing that we fill up. Now, I set my fill line, and my wife and I have had many conversations about this as we do this system together. And there are always ideas that I had initially that in talking with my partner, that's not going to work for her. And so we have to make concessions. We have to meet in the middle and compromise and find a way to do things that are going to make the most sense for us. And so the way that we do it is we identify what our needs are. Those are things like our housing, our utilities, and our phones, our car insurance, and of course, food. But we also have a couple of, those monthly subscriptions, the entertainment. Now, you could, the entertainment, like a Netflix account or Disney Plus or something like that. Those, of course, are, they're wants, right? They're for sure wants. But because they're a monthly reoccurring thing, we kind of tend to lump it into our needs category just based on the fact that we need to pay it every month. It's going to come out every month regardless, unless we cancel it, right? Now, if we got really low, a lot of those subscriptions are the first thing to go. However, not all of them. And you know, I was counseled at one point. There's a while ago where I was having a really rough winter, and I went to a mentor to help me just kind of make sense and heads or tails of my life. And we were, talking about finances and budget and how do I deal with this? And I was like, well, I guess I could, I guess I should probably cut Netflix and all of this and Disney. And he was like, he's like, I'm actually gonna counsel you to not cut those things. He said, what you're going through is really hard, and sometimes just having a small luxury, and I know that we're trying to be really tight on the budget, but just not being able to have that little bit of entertainment can actually make this time period even harder than it is. So I would say just go ahead and keep one of them so that have something to watch and get your mind off of your situation and figure out how to save money in other ways. And I think that's pretty wise counsel because the reality is that these the subscriptions, as individual expenses, they're really a very small drop in the bucket. Of course, if you have all of them, then it gets expensive. But if things are slim, I would recommend just at least keeping one of them or one or two that you use quite a bit so that your life isn't so that it's not too depressing, of course. So with your needs, you want to make sure that you fill that bucket up to what you need at least with the month ahead. We want to make sure that we have all of the money that we need for the next month and the month prior. So if I'm looking at February, and I'm in January, I'm trying to fill up my needs for my February bucket. And 1 month is when you have some of the other buckets filled up, like you have your safety account filled up, 1 month is usually fine. You might want two. You might want 2 months. You might want a little bit more. It just kind of depends on your comfort level and your discipline, really. Because one of the things that I've ultimately noticed is that at a certain point, if I have too much money in this needs account, I'm going to start getting undisciplined. I'm going to start, saying, well, we've got some buffer in there. And so I just, my old habits, my old spending habits creep back in. But if I keep it a little bit more tight, looking at the month ahead and okay, in my needs bucket, this is what's in the month ahead, this is what I need, then I'm going to be less likely to spend frivolously. Now, the bank account that I use for my needs account is actually my checking account. So I'll use the checking account for my needs, and I'm tying all of my bills to my needs account, and all of the automated ones that come out, all of the bill pay ones that come out. I'm using my checking account for that because that's where my income goes into. My income flows into the needs account. I fill it up to the amount that's going to cover roughly 4 weeks, my full month of expenses. And then from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, I am spending that account down. Okay. So, you fill it up and then you just start spending it on all those needs. And your account's going to go down. Of course, we're going to fill it back up to the top line before we get to, let's say, March. But I'm going to fill it down and fill it down and fill it down. What does this effect have on you? Well, what the effect is that as you see that money going down, you naturally start to get a little more conservative in your spending habits. Okay, you see it going down and you start getting more and more conservative with your spending habits, which is going to help you psychologically to curb your spending without having to resort to, you know, hard budgets and you're gonna make a mistake. So we just want to make it simple on ourselves. We fill the line up for the month. We go down, we go down, and we go down, and we go down. Now, there are certain needs that we have that aren't a set bill, right? For example, you've got your food. That's a very common one. Food and other other types of shopping that I would say are categorized as needs. In those instances, there's two things you could do. You have options here. You could set up one of these online bank accounts like Chime, which kind of give you a low cost debit card that you can just charge money onto. You can put money onto that account, put a very small set amount, and you can say, okay, on this card, this is what we're using for groceries, and we are this is how much we have, and when we're out, we're out. This we'll say that this debit card does not have any auto drafts or payments. There's no subscription tied to this card, so we know that no money is coming out unless we swipe it. Okay, and so you could do that. That's an option, to have a card that just you put grocery money onto it. Okay. Another option, of course, is to use cash. So you pull out cash at the beginning of the month, or what we tend to do in our home is we go based off of 2 week sprints, and so we I really live the sprint lifestyle. It's we do it at home, we do it in business, and so for us, we have our sprint cycle set up on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and so at the 1st of the month, we sit down together. We have our sprint meeting where we go over the next 2 weeks of finances, and we figure out, are we able to withdraw the amount of money for food and shopping and miscellaneous items that we intended. And so we kind of recalibrate. We say, okay, yeah, so we pull out the money, and that's the money that we have for our groceries. And anytime we go out and to the grocery store, pick out buy groceries, then we're using cash. Same for our necessity spending. The shopping, that's the necessity, right? We spend it down from the cash envelope. Now, one of the things that I always grappled with when I first started using cash over debit cards was, well, what do you do when you're out of cash? What do you do when you're out and you need something but you don't have the cash? Well, and back, originally I would say, well, I guess you're gonna have to run yourself back home and pick up some cash, and maybe you don't need it as much after all. That's somewhat, that's a little rigid. I found that to be a little rigid. So what we do now, which I think is pretty clever, this is something my wife came up, is she created a cash envelope that's called deposits. And so whenever, if I'm out and she gives me a call, because I really don't carry cash, I don't really carry the cash when I'm out. So if she says, hey, I need you to run by the store and pick something up, I go and use my card, and then I bring back the receipt, and then she takes the cash to cover the receipt, and she puts it in an envelope that she calls the deposit envelope. And then when we, as many times as that happens where we're out and about, we don't have the cash on hand, and we use our card, we go back home, and then we subtract the amount of money from the envelope, and we put it into the deposit envelope, and we hold that until the next sprint meeting. And when this next sprint meeting comes, maybe we have a balance in the deposit account, and we just reshuffle that money back into our, back into our envelopes. So that might not, that might work for you. It works for us. It keeps us, really paying attention to it at all times. Helps us to curb our spending. Certainly other cash methods believe in envelopes and using cash. But I also believe that the debit card, the little, you use just the online, you know, free debit card, account, like a Chime account or something like that. I believe that that works just as well. You just have to make sure that you don't attach any subscriptions to that card so that you can keep a very low balance without worrying about, overdrafting, right? You put the money in that account, and then you've got the ability to spend some money on stuff when you're out and about. So that's how the needs account works. And of course, if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask a question in the comments, and I do see those, and I respond. So next up, we have our wants account. Now with the wants, these are things that I say you should live. Your lifestyle should revolve around your just wants and needs. And what do I mean by your just wants? Your just wants are wants that are justifiable, right? You know, different people have different lifestyles. I was reading an article today, where Bill Gates was talking about, just how he has a plan to give away all of his wealth in 9 years, and he said it would be a very proud accomplishment for him if he could get himself off of the list of richest men in the world. And I think that's probably a lot easier to say and to think about when you're not on that list. Like maybe you get on that list and you realize, oh, this was fun, but there are more important things in the world. He says he lives far below what he actually accumulates. That is true for Bill Gates, right? But it also, I think it's a decent lesson. I think it's a decent lesson to say, like, some of these folks that just have piles and piles of cash, um, they're it's not the meaning of life, right? What we need to live on is the things that are justifiable, our just wants and needs. And I would say that just also kind of it pulls into this notion, this idea that um, it's justifiable with regards to how much money that you actually make. And so if you're making more money, you're going to have a more comfortable lifestyle. I strongly advocate for living below your means. I strongly advocate for simplicity and minimalism in life. I think that when we have a lifestyle that it forces us to make more money, that we end up on this rat race. I remember being, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. I bought my first car, and I thought that was a great accomplishment. Of course, when I bought that car, I had to put gas in that car, and I had to pay insurance. And so the reason that I got a car in the first place was so that I could get to work. But then I had to keep working in order to pay for the car, because that was my only like real expense. And so it like gaining expense only instigated more work, right? It not only did it instigate it, but it mandated more work. And so when we gain more expenses, we have an expensive lifestyle. It forces us to earn a lot of money, and there are many statistics that prove that at a certain point, more money really does mean more problems. And there's a massive longitudinal study across multiple industries that indicated that for daily satisfaction, and this is a global study, For daily satisfaction, people as individuals, um, if when they hit around $72,000 to $75,000 a year, that is enough money for daily satisfaction. And I say daily satisfaction because there's a satisfaction that is maybe beyond daily, where you're starting to be able to think about overall life satisfaction, and that comes at around $96,000 a year. So if you make anywhere between 75 to $96,000 a year, statistically, you are that's as happy as people get. When people, and according to the same study, when people grow their income beyond $96,000 a year, what has been found is that their level of happiness starts to decline. And it starts to decline really the more money that you actually make. And so what this means is that the added stress that comes from the types of jobs that earn a lot of money uh, do not contribute to overall happiness. So I keep that in mind, not as a reason to limit the amount of money that you make and your earning potential, but to just put in perspective that money isn't everything, and that ultimately getting to that point of between $75,000 and $96,000 a year, that you can actually be happy, and you could be the peak happiness, and you're not worried about about bills, and you're not worried so much about surviving. Of course, that in order for that to be true, you have to make sure that your expenses, your needs and wants are justifiable, right? They're within reason according to the money that you make. Now, if you're not making 75 to 90 $6,000 a year, then of course we want to do things to increase our income. And part of my belief system, within the context of craftsman painter, is that I believe that a painter, a practicing painter, should be able to hit that window as being a painter. Unfortunately, in our industry, what we've been trained to understand by most of our peers is that you can't make money as a painter, but you can make money selling painting services. And so we see so many business owners trying to retrain and turn themselves into salespeople because other people say that's the way that you make money. But my goal at Craftsman Painter is to have painters who are paid on par with the other well-paying trades like electricians and plumbers. I believe that we can be. There's a model, a financial model, in order to achieve that, and I know many people who actually are. It's hard work, but if you love painting and you're smart with your practices, then you can have that level of income. You can have a really fine income that's going to make you plenty of happiness, and give you a lot of life satisfaction. And so with these wants, with these justifiable wants, what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, on a monthly basis, throughout the month, how much am I gonna give myself to spend on things that might be a little spontaneous, might be a gift for somebody, might even be a gift for myself, going out to restaurants, going on your date nights, getting a little ice cream at the ice cream store, that kind of thing. They're the simple and small wants, not our big wants. We're not talking about our big wants here. We're talking about our small wants. And so we fill this line to just a small amount, small budget for ourselves. We either hang on to it in cash, or we load it onto one of these debit cards, and that's the money that you have to spend. That's what you're allowed to spend. And depending on the season, you might not have that money coming in, right? because what we're doing here is we're looking at the income that we're making, and when that income comes in, we pour it first into that needs bucket. And when we filled up the need to the fill line, then the remaining money gets pulled into the wants bucket. And we fill this line up until it reaches that amount that is justifiable and is going to provide for a fulfilling, daily existence and life. We fill it up to that amount, and we don't overspend, right? We don't keep filling it. We fill it to there, and then we take the rest and we pour it into our safety account. The safety account is it's a little bit different than your traditional emergency fund. A lot of systems have like an emergency fund. Emergency funds are typically a little more static. It's a certain amount of money that you basically don't touch unless there's a true emergency. And the safety account is it's a little different than that. It's a little more fluid. Okay, it's still a specific amount of money that's going to represent about 3 months of your income, and you're going to use it for some of those emergency type things. So let's say you get a car bill or a medical bill or something like that that's not expected. You can use it for that, but remember that we're in a seasonal business, and so if you do have a slow period and you have you maybe in a certain month you didn't fill the gap of what you needed, then you can use your safety account to fill that gap. Think of it like spackle. It's a trough that you dip into, and then you fill the hole. You fill the gaps. Okay, so it's a little more fluid than your typical emergency fund, and that's okay. All right, that's just how this is designed. The goal, of course, is to identify, okay, if there was a deficit, was it because I overspent in one of my categories? Did I overspend on groceries or shopping or date nights? Did I overspend in those areas? Was it because we had something like a birthday party or Christmas that we didn't really quite plan for? We want to identify whether the problem was a spending issue or an earnings issue, because sometimes, look, we didn't buy anything extra. We didn't go on any dates. We were living, we ate rice and noodles, and that's it. Maybe that's the case, right? Other times, yeah, sure, maybe you had a week where well, typically, meat is expensive. You're grocery shopping, you buy meat, and sometimes you need to stock up on meat, and that blows your budget, right? So we want to kind of look and identify, like, what was the reason? Was it negligence, or was it circumstance, right? Was it frivolousness, or was it the circumstance? A lot of times it's going to be the circumstance, but you know what? We have to be honest with ourselves and know when we're the culprit, right? But often, especially in seasonal businesses, the culprit is that we just didn't make enough money, right? And so if we didn't make enough money to fill that gap, then that's what the safety account is there for. It's there to help us to smooth over our finances when things get a little slim. And the idea of the safety account is that in the months of surplus, like the ant, we're able to stash away the money so that when the winter comes, we can relax, we can cool down, we can hibernate a little and get ready for the new year. Okay, your safety account is going to represent that. Okay, and like I said, it's going to represent 3 months of income. Why 3 months of income? Well, the slow season is usually about 3 months, right? And so we want to feel so secure that we could go the whole slow season And if not a single job came in, we would still have enough to cover those expenses. And when the jobs do come in, then we'll be able to not pull and dip completely from the safety account. Now, the idea of taking an entire 3 months off is that's probably not what's going to happen, right? I would say that you should throughout the year plan on in this business at least around 6 weeks off, and where most of those weeks are happening in the winter months. Maybe they're separated by Thanksgiving, and you've got Christmas and New Year's, and then you're gonna have some random sick days and vacation days and things like that sprinkled throughout the year. But I would typically recommend thinking about having a good 3 to 4 weeks off in the winter, which is some great recuperation time. Now, if you have more time off than that, then of course you're going to need to supplement your income with other things, and that's why especially for folks that are just breaking away from being an employee, or maybe they're a subcontractor, and they're trying to get their own business. People that are in those early stages of developing their painting company, you're going to probably experience a longer down period in those first couple of years, but each year they get better, and there are some years where you don't even slow down at all. But the idea here of the safety account is trying to get to that point where you've got 3 months of your income stashed away, so that in the case of an extended slow period, you've got at least that much money. Now, I say at least 3 months of income. You could plan on having more. If you feel more comfortable with having 4 or 5 or 6, that's fine. But 3 is pretty good. Okay, 3 is pretty good. And so what we're going to do from here is, once we've filled this line up, now here's the thing: your needs and your wants, that fill line, that line goes down every single month, because you're always spending on your needs and your wants. With your safety, you're not always spending that money, right? You're not always spending that money. And so in fact, you might look at the whole year and you might say, okay, well, I actually got that fill line ready to go by June. And so after June, I don't need to fill it anymore, because it's already filled. I've already got my 3 months. And so you set that aside, and you just keep filling up your needs and your wants, and you do it in order: needs, wants, safety. And once that safety line is filled up, now you've got free cash flow. And so your free cash flow is that extra money that you get to make decisions on what you're going to do about it. Now, according to our system, we split it into two directions. We've got our short-term goals, and then we've got our future goals. Okay, and so the short-term goals, a lot of times those are things that are sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're big investments. It could be a down payment on a house. It could be paying for an education. It could be buying a new car. It could be vacation. It could be, maybe we're looking toward Christmas already. Maybe we're, at the beginning of the year, or July or August, and we're looking at a few months from now where we're gonna have to come up with Christmas, and we know that in the summer, or in the spring and the wintertime, we know that we slow down. And so if we expect to have enough money for Christmas now, if we expect that we're gonna have enough money for Christmas in the future, maybe looking at the past, we should say, hey, let's be smart. Let's start stashing away some money right now for Christmas, right? So we can create goals. And at the vast majority of banks, you can set up multiple accounts and label them with specific names. And being able to label them with the specific names, you can create goals for however many things you want to be able to create goals for. But let's say that you have a goal to purchase a new vehicle. The as often as I've purchased a new vehicle, I've never felt like I've been able to do it in a smart way. It always feels like a massive gamble, and it always feels like a massive waste of money. But we live in a modern age where you got to drive around. Okay, so the difference between the difference of you have the different options. You can lease, you can finance, you can buy, you can pay in cash. Um, like I said, I've never felt good about any of those ways of purchasing. Even buying cash, I don't even feel that great about. But what I do know is that when you have cash, it gives you more power and leverage in the conversation. And when you are able to put down a large amount of cash for a newer vehicle, not completely new, but newer, one that's not going to break down on you, having more cash will help you reduce your interest and your payment amount. And so, if you're looking at the life of your vehicle and you're thinking, okay, in the next few years, I would like to replace my vehicle. Maybe now's a good time to start. And so, as the cash comes in, maybe that's the goal that you're looking at, right? And so, what you do every month, or every time money comes in, you cash flow your money all the way to the point of the cash flow mark, and you set a percentage. How am I going to divide this money? So let's say your cash flow hits, and things covered well enough, and so what you're going to do is you're going to split that money. You're going to split 50% of it towards immediate goals, and you're going to split 50% of it towards your future. Okay, and that's basically how it works. You just pick a percentage that works for you and for your goals, and you split the money as it comes through. Now it's a little bit more nuanced in terms of what that percentage should be, but let's talk about those things. So the first thing is the goal, right? You identify what that goal is. You identify what the target is, the total target amount. You identify how much cash you have to go towards it on a consistent basis, and the period of months that you want to go and be able to purchase it. So, for example, let's say you do want to buy a new car, and you feel like you have 3 years left on the lifespan of your current vehicle, which is probably way more time than most people plan. Most people are like, oh, I want to buy a car, and then they start saving for the next 6 months and see what they can do. But let's just say that you're really being proactive and you think, okay, 3 years from now, I'm going to buy a new car. You're going to take the number of months, which that to me sounds like a 36-month period, and you're going to identify how much you want to be able to put down towards that car, whether you want to pay it all or a portion up front, and you're going to divide that by the term, and your target is going to be to put that amount, every time you cash flow. Now, some months, because your spending discipline is not perfect, some months you're going to have less money to contribute to that goal, and some months you might have more. Also, because your income is variable, goes up and down, some months you're going to have more money to contribute to that target, and some months you're going to have less. But regardless, you're going to put that amount in, and you'll do that for however many goals that you have. Of course, if you have too many goals, you're going to make a very small amount of progress on each goal. But you can do it however you want. Sometimes focused energy on one thing gets you to that goal faster than a divided energy. Now let's say that your goal is you've got a goal to get out of debt. Maybe that's one of your goals. In that case, I recommend the debt power down method, powering down your debt. Some people call it the snowball method. But the basic idea is that you take your debts, you list them out, you pay on each of them, and if you have extra money, you pay extra towards one of them to get it knocked out, and then when you are finished paying on the balance of one, you take that remaining money and you power down to the next one, and you do the payment plus the previous payment on it, and now you're putting more money on that next one. You knock that one out faster than you had planned, and you power down again, and you put the sum of the first two plus plus the premium of the third one, and you power down on that debt, and you keep going until it's all eliminated. There is a question about whether or not to how do you order them? Do you do it biggest to smallest? Do you do it smallest to biggest? Do you do it by interest rate? I think there's an easy way to do it. The easiest way to think about it is listing it smallest to biggest, because you're able to knock out those small ones quickly. There's many advocates of doing it that way. But there's also the idea of looking at the interest rate. And honestly, if you have something that's a very high interest rate, like a credit card, even if that has the higher balance, I would actually attack that one first. If we're, I mean, because what I'm talking about is where the interest rate is a difference of like 10, 5 to 10 percentage points. If it's a difference of 5 to 10 percentage points, I'll probably attack the higher interest rates first, and do it that way. But if the interest rates are pretty similar, smallest to biggest isn't that big of a deal. It's a fine way to do it. So that's how we attack our goals. We take the percentage and we split it up. Now, if you're in debt, do you do 100% towards goals and 0% towards the future? I'll leave that up to you. What I will say is that neglecting investments in the future can really hurt you down the road. Especially if you're young. If you're a young person now, and you have the opportunity to invest, $5 to $1,000 a month in a investment account, you should do that. You should not mess around. You should do that. Don't delay that, because waiting until you're in your 30s or 40s, or to start investing in money, you'll be out hundreds of thousands of dollars if you delay. So do that. You can get out of debt. You can get out of debt, but you can't get back the investment period of your 20s. So let's go ahead and talk about the future. So the future, we've got, these are your investments, right? Couple things that you can invest in. You can invest in stocks, of course, stock market, mutual funds, 401k, simple IRAs, Roth IRAs, all those kinds of things. If you have access to a 401k, which when you are a member of the PEO, you do. What I like about the 401k is that the tax deduction that comes from contributing to your 401k is very significant. And so it's more significant than the Roth IRA. It's a higher number. And when you are married, both individuals can contribute an equal amount. It varies by year. As of this recording, 2024, I believe that the contribution limit is around $27,000 or $29,000 per individual, something like that. And so that is a deduction on your taxes, which means that you can have a higher gross income, and after the deduction, your adjusted gross income goes significantly down, and you're taxed at a lower, potentially keeping you in a lower tax bracket. So The 401k, I mean, if you got access to it, and like I said, you join the PEO, and you will have access to an affordable 401k. um, that's as good as you can get. It's the tax deduction alone is worth that investment vehicle. It's your money. You just you're just going to spend it later. I still like the 401k. I also like the Roth IRA and simple IRAs and all that. And investments in general are important. But there are other investment vehicles, that you could consider as part of your portfolio. One such investment vehicle would be, of course, real estate. Investing in a long-term or short-term rental property. Great way to have an investment income. What I like about real estate as an investment vehicle is that you get to reap the rewards of it as soon as you have purchased it and have done the necessary and have done the necessary renovations and have filled it with a tenant. You get that return. And a single property isn't gonna, probably won't yield you the return that is required to justify owning the property. But you build up, you build up a couple properties, and the idea is that you start replacing your income. You replace your income, and if you're able to get enough real estate to cover your needs, and your just needs and your just wants, now you have a lot of options. The amount of money that you earn as a professional painter then can go towards more investments, right? And you are able to expand your wealth and grow your wealth so that you can easily retire, and even look at scenarios of either an early retirement or a semi-retirement. Investments can be a really great path for that. Um, the third the third investment vehicle that I would be looking at is she's sick. Now the third investment type is new venture creation. And so, either with your existing painting business, or maybe this is more of a side hustle for you, and you're taking steps to get into it, or maybe you've been doing this a while, and you would like to invest in growth. Um, taking your own cash and investing into new venture creation or venture expansion, reinvesting cash into your business, can be a viable expansion option. Now, it can be a viable investment option. Now, what I caution you against is having too much hubris in this idea. I think that a lot of business owners, especially, feel like they themselves are the best bet that they can bet on, and so they will say, okay, yeah, I'm putting all my chips in, and doubling down on business growth, and so on and so forth, and they end up wasting tens of thousands of dollars. And so, no matter what your investment vehicle is, you have to make sure that you are taking a calculated risk. And often in new venture creation, that calculated risk is it can be prone to failure. And so make sure that that if you're going to make that risk, that you know, if you're going to make that gamble, make sure that you know the risks, and aren't making a foolish decision. Um, in general, what I'm looking at is what is the return. So if I'm gonna take money, I want to measure the return against each of those three options. Will I be able to achieve a higher financial return if I invest in a new venture? Am I going to have a higher financial return if I invest in the stock market or in real estate? And my first investments are going to be, edging towards, probably a more conservative approach. And I say that, being a business owner, a more conservative approach is actually going to do you really well. I was at a recent event where I was speaking to the group, and we were talking about analyzing marketing investments. Do I put $5,000 or $10,000 into a marketing campaign this month, or over the course of the year, do I put $60,000 into a marketing campaign? And fortunately, what I've seen through survey of other business owners is it's very easy to waste $60,000 on marketing and get zero return out of it. It's very, very easy to do that. And I told the group, imagine, okay, you want to invest in a painting company. Well, the Sherwin-Williams stock happens to be very consistent in terms of returning its, giving a return to its shareholders. In fact, for the last 44 years, they've consistently provided an increase in return to the shareholders, and they consistently have performed above index funds, and they've 2 to 3 percentage points above the stock market in general. And so if you can't get a 12% return or greater from your ad spend, if you are at risk of wasting it because you don't know what you're doing, I would consider just investing in the stock market, because you're going to have a more consistent return on your dollar. It's when you have the ability to invest beyond that, perhaps after you've maxed out your 401k, after you've maxed out your Roth IRA. That is when I'd be looking at opportunities for new venture creation. Now you always and I say that beyond your existing venture, right? And I also say that outside of putting additional money into your venture, right? I'm talking specifically about reinvesting into your business. So those are some things to consider. Those three buckets for the future are the stock market, real estate, and venture creation. All of which have of course, the ability to help you create a future that you should be proud of. And so that's how the cash flow system works. You start with your income, you fill up your needs bucket, from your needs, you fill up your wants, then you start filling up that safety bucket, and then when the cash flows over and you've got all your safety concerns taken care of, cash flows over, we split it into goals and future investments. Now, there's one last component to the cash flow system that I think will really help you, and if you're married, it will help your spouse to stay on the same page. And it's called the cash flow calendar. Now, the cash flow calendar is something that I kind of figured out on my own. I believe other people have figured this out on their own as well, and it's a very convenient tool to helping you and your spouse get on the same page with money. And so what we do is we actually every year we purchase one of those big desk paper calendars. and that's our cash flow calendar. And on it, we list out all of the bills that are coming out, all of the consistent bills. We list out all of the cash withdrawals that we're going to have, and we utilize this calendar and we put it in a place where we can both look at it and we update it. And so, at our sprint meetings, what we do is we get together and we make sure that we have it on the calendar of when our sprint meeting is going to be, and we sit down and we look at the calendar. We pull out our bank apps, we look at the statements and transactions, and we say, okay, when did rent come out? When did the phone come out? When did the car insurance come out? When did the utilities come out? And we plot it on the calendar, and we put the amount, and we total up that amount so that we could see how much cash is going out. And that's our needs. And then we look at our bill the last month, and we say, okay, how much money did we spend on things like groceries or fuel or general shopping? We put that total down, and we assess, and we say, was that a justifiable amount? Do we need more? Can we get it down to less? What is the total? We need to know what the total is of the cash going out throughout the month. And then we need to know how much we need to clear in order to put more money into our safety account, in order to cash flow, and in order to put money towards goals, put money towards the future. Okay? And so we do this together, and we do it 2 times a month, on the 1st and the 15th. We sit down and we have that meeting and we review. At the beginning of the month, it's a little bit longer because we are planning out the entire month. The middle of the month is just more of a review to see how we're doing, and we start reconciling, and we make sure that our cash is good. And we tend to do our cash withdrawals on the 1st and the 15th. We don't give ourselves the grocery money at the beginning of the month because, again, Parkinson's law, we're more likely to spend all that money. And if you fill up your refrigerator and your cupboards at the beginning of the month, you're more likely to eat all of that food faster. And so we like to take a withdrawal on the 1st of the month, take a withdrawal on the 15th of the month, and that helps us to pace things out a little bit more. Now, a few things that if you're doing this by yourself, the hardest part is just being disciplined to do it. And so I would say get it on a calendar and make sure that you set reminders for yourself to do it. Okay, it's probably harder in a lot of ways to do it alone than it is to do it in a partnership. But a partnership brings its own challenges. You have one partner who is a little more of a spendthrift, and you have the other person who's maybe more of a spender. And so what the way that you organize this as a family, sometimes it varies from family to family. How I like to think about it is it's a matter of offense and defense. And in some couples, you play offense and defense more like a football team, and in some households you're playing the game of basketball. What do I mean by that? Well, with football, you have a unit for offense and you have a unit for defense. Meaning you have the unit who's in charge of making the money, and you have the unit who's in charge of saving the money. And the football teams that are successful are the ones where the offense and defense are there for each other. And a great offense helps the defense by putting points up on the board, and not allowing points the other way. A great defense helps the offense by making sure that not too many points are are scored the other way, and if they can pick up some points, on their end, then then that's helpful, right? The teams that struggle in football are where they either have a weak offense or a weak defense. They could have a great defense, but if their offense is weak, then it makes winning games and championships really difficult, and vice versa. You have great offense, but you have poor defense, and what ends up happening is you're making a lot of money, but you're also spending a lot of money. And so that combination of offense and defense as a couple is really critical. It's important that the offense doesn't consider them the good guys, and the defense ends up being the bad guy. The stick in the mud, that's important. Offense has to show a tremendous amount of gratitude and respect, and they need to praise and honor the defense. You see that in football games at the end where yeah, maybe you've got a fantastic quarterback, and they don't forget to give enough credit to the defense, right? They give plenty of credit to the defense. Some households are going to be like that, where one person is really all about making the money, and the other's going to be the one that's defending the bank account, and that's very common in a single income household, right? I personally think it's important that if you're going to be a single income household, that you play the game of football with your finances. That is my personal opinion. Now, if you have a two income household, then you're gonna have to. It's more basketball. You're gonna have to play offense and defense. Okay, and the reason why basketball is a better analogy here is because when both partners are working and making money, it's easy to forget about defense. It's easy to be like modern NBA, where you think, well, we're able to score a lot of points. We're able to make a lot of baskets, and so we'll let we don't care about defense as much. And you look at the NBA scores of today's game, and you've got these 130, 140 point games, and a couple of years ago, when the Warriors were shooting all their threes and having really high scoring games, and the other teams couldn't keep up with the offensive production, they were a dominant force. Well, the NBA caught suit. Now all the games they're scoring like that. And what's happening to the Warriors? Well, they're struggling because everybody caught up, right? So remember that defense is still important. And so how do you play defense as a team? When you're both responsible for playing defense, it comes back to this cash flow calendar. This cash flow calendar is probably the best tool for personal finance management that I've ever seen and ever used. I've tried a lot of apps. I'll tell you that. I've tried a lot of apps. The cash flow calendar helps me to see visually when and where the money is coming out, and when the money needs to come in. And that's the beautiful part about it, is that if you look at your finances and you say, okay, in this sprint, in the first half of the month, we've got 75% of our bills coming out. Well, you know that you have to front load your earning. You need to earn as much cash before the beginning of the month, and in the second half of the month you have a little bit of breathing room, right? It helps you understand how much cash you need and when, and that's the key. That's the key to this. So if you're in a household where you're playing the game of basketball, make sure that you know that it's not one person's responsibility to play defense because you're both playing offense. It means you both have to play defense. You both have to get into the habit of saving and being disciplined, and making sure that all that great money that you guys are earning, that it's not flying out the window. All right, that is this webinar on personal cash flow. I hope that it has been helpful. I do recommend watching this with your spouse if you are married. If you are single, I recommend finding an accountability partner. Find a friend that is maybe not your best friend, but a friend that maybe cares about personal finance, and you guys talk money every now and again, and ask them if they'll be your accountability partner, and help you make sure that you're playing good offense and good defense until the next sprint seminar. I wish you well, and have a great couple of weeks.